Welcome everybody to the Rundown. I am your host, Dr. Sam Zehner, physical therapist and fitness enthusiast and expert, maybe you would call me, but a little bit different setup here. If you've been watching the previous episodes, I'm here with a very special guest, my OG partner and the birthplace of my practice, actually being adjacent to his business, Coach Mitchell Klopp from CrossFit Woolly Mammoth.
How's it going, everybody?
Here we go.
Thanks for having me.
We're playing around with the technicalities here. If you can see, my arm is extended a little bit. I'm doing some manual editing as we're going here. So if I'm not looking at Mitch, that's why. I'm not ignoring him, but
You just got to talk to the people. That's just the way it goes.
that's what I'm trying to see. So if it looks really, really bad afterwards, I'm sorry. You can blame me, people. But Mitch, mostly what I want to do is give you exposure for anybody watching, listening, primarily to talk about CrossFit and your gym specifically. I've been a member for a couple years, but I want to give everybody who maybe hasn't known us or met us the genesis of your gym and your business and how we've kind of come to be partners and our mutual outlook going forward.
Yeah. So cool thing is we're coming up pretty close on year number 4. Actually, year number 5. Excuse me. So October of 2022 is when we opened the doors, but I started running classes right after the CrossFit Games in 2022. Kind of the big backstory behind Mammoth was I was a head coach, general manager in the area, and the facility I was running or helping run, I didn't have the autonomy, it didn't have kind of the backing, and unfortunately, the business kind of plummeted pretty quick for other reasons. But had the opportunity to take some people, and with the backing of some of the community that we had, um, they encouraged me to open my own facility. In 20, this might have been 2015. I had a HHP class. Shout out to Doc C at Concordia University. I think she's now retired, big time.
Go Birds.
Yeah. Um, we had a budgeting portion to this class, and we had to make a health club in the area, and it had to be significant somewhat to Mequon. Obviously, with my background in art, originally wanted to be an art teacher. Throwback. Took the idea of something that'd be iconic. My favorite logo being the Brewers M&B. I was like, all right, that's kind of where I'm going to take the framework from my logo. Fast forwarding it back to 2022. But I took that same exact budgeting that I had from that class and the framework behind it, tweaked it a little bit based on the 10 years of experience that I had through CrossFit and general population work and in the strength conditioning field, um, and played around with it. And that took me into what I brought into Mequon here at Mammoth. So that's kind of the backstory. So taking the dark, turning it into the light, had a great time doing it, had an amazing community and backing. We're sitting a little over 70 members now. Back then in 2022, we only had 17. So 17 people is what allowed us to open the doors, and now we're growing, right? Um, Off of that, like I said, we're coming up on the 5-year mark. I was actually taking Saturdays and doing free workouts and doing them in different areas in this town. And that kind of made it nostalgic. So now coming up in a couple of weeks, we're going to be doing our 5th anniversary for the hill climb. Our Stampede the Hill is what we've now named it, based off of the gym. Free workout, going to be kind of minimal equipment and just a lot of fun. So a big community building event and an opportunity for all of us to kind of see where we started. And now you're taking away all the fancy equipment and the fun, loud music and just getting back to the roots and just grinding where we got it going. So
that's awesome. So really a homegrown community, really. That sounds like it started ultimately out of something as simple as a homework assignment,
yeah,
say.
yeah.
I mean, was this something that you ever dreamed of starting, like as a kid, or maybe in high school, or was this something just kind of spur the cuff, and then or off the cuff rather, and then just all of a sudden decided like, hey, maybe I can actually do this?
The odd thing is no, I never wanted, I never wanted the opportunity to own a gym. I always thought in the back of my mind maybe it's something I could do because I really enjoyed, taking everything that I do on a day-to-day basis and leaving it at work. But realistically, you become so emotionally and structurally attached to these individuals that you see 300 times a year,
Mm-hmm.
right? Based on how many times they show up to the facility. It's kind of hard to compartmentalize that because there is such a tight knit group and a good community that you have a following with that makes it hard to, walk away.
Mm-hmm.
So, in from the cuff, I know? Maybe. It was kind of an underlying statement back in the day, but I wouldn't change it for a bit now.
Yeah, that's awesome. And that sense of community is definitely something that I want to come back to as we're talking about here, because that's as a member for the past 3 years
Mhm.
now, it's been awesome to be a small part of that and to grow and to meet everybody. But we'll touch on that. So, going along the timeline idea here, let's talk a little bit about how you and I got connected.
Mhm.
I believe I don't remember who initiated the conversation, whether it was me or you, but I do remember when you opened up was before me, and I saw like I knew you obviously from having been at Concordia, been working in the weight room, and the
Been
fact
in
that you,
classes together.
yeah, exactly, yeah. So you had your, you start your practice or your business rather. I had always wanted to start a practice, and we got in touch and started working out, or I started working out of the closet essentially, connected
It's an office.
to your gym. Yeah, yeah. For at the time, it was my office, yeah, but uh, I guess going back to that point now and like looking at the growth you've made so far, what has been probably the biggest contributor to your growth as a business too? I mean, I don't want to make this so much about me, so
No,
I
I
would love
think
to
it's
hear more your perspective.
from the perspective of growth, I take wholehearted, right? Everything that we've been talking about with the community. I knew that I wouldn't be able to do this alone. And one of the pillars that I actually kind of brought into play with Mammoth being the forefront and the icon or mascot, we'll say.
Mm,
They're actually a small herded animal if you look into the literature. And I knew as an individual you can be massive and be as large as Mammoth, but with your herd, you're not going to be able to travel far. So allowing myself to find individuals that I can work with and create something that would, be more of a sports umbrella. Having, I'm not saying everybody's going to get hurt or anybody's going to get hurt, but having somebody that I can rely on um, to let my individuals go to that I trust, and we can talk and converse and make sure that things can be scaled or tailored accordingly if they need any sort of prehab, rehab, or just strength going forward and how I can help
mhm,
or how you can help. So that was kind of the big thought behind it. When I got started, I was like, all right, I need to figure out a team. I was working every class uh, Monday through Saturday where I didn't have anybody, but having you on my corner, it was like, all right, this is somebody that I can talk to if I need, have a question or, I need some help with something with an individual that, is pretty high up there where
mhm,
it's way past my expertise. So that was kind of the big thought behind it. But school wise, I think where we met, your wife was in my class. She sat next to me
mhm,
in our ex phys classes. So that's kind of how I knew of you. And then as you started to help with the strength conditioning side when I was a graduate assistant there at Concordia, that was where kind of the ball was rolling because our mindset was the same. We both enjoyed Olympic weightlifting and moving the right way and
mhm.
functionality behind it. And kind of created the bond from early on and moved into the opportunity of, I think you slid in my DMs first.
Might
Um,
have.
and that's kind of how it kind of got started. Just you reached out asking questions, and I told you to come to the open house, and from there it was just let's get it rolling,
Yeah,
see what we can do.
yeah. I still remember that day too, seeing your gym on day one essentially or early on, and remembering how cool that was. It's somebody I knew that was just kind of a regular guy like myself. Now he had his thing, right? And for me that was really motivating too to try to build up my own practice. So and you touch on trust, you touch on the idea of relationships, and speaking for myself over the past several years being in practice, that's been probably the most important part, not just of my work with clients, but also with partners. And so the trust that we have is extremely important. And I think, as you said, it is super important to have somebody in your corner who thinks like you, or at least has the same kind of motivations and direction as you. So for viewers and listeners, maybe who aren't familiar with you or with Woolly Mammoth or CrossFit in general, what would you say is your general philosophy of of what a gym should be or what maybe fitness or exercise should be? Because there's when somebody says like, oh, I go to the gym, like that could mean 1,000 different things.
Yeah.
But when they say I go to Woolly Mammoth or when Coach Klopp is my coach, what do you want that to mean to people?
The way that I look at it and I kind of view life inside of the gym is I want technique to be flawless,
Mm,
right? Obviously, you can't grasp perfection, but you can strive for it. On top of the flawless movement, I want as much or as many opportunities to try as I possibly can receive from any athlete. Just because if you're willing to try, you're going to be able to shock the system. Obviously, our minds, our bodies are crazy machines, and you're never going to know what you're capable of until you actually give it a go. Um, so that's probably the two big pillars, and then moving in a way that's slow enough, smooth enough, but can eventually move fast enough is kind of how you can look at it from the perspective of CrossFit itself.
mm.
So,
Yeah, awesome. So the coaching is very intentional,
mhm.
obviously, and I know that, but I want everybody who's listening and hearing to know that too. Um, and and I think that that's an important piece to touch on because as many people think CrossFit, they think that there's a lack of coaching or people get hurt all the time or it's just a big gym of irresponsibility and injuries and stuff like that happening. So what might be a quick way that you would summarize if somebody had to bump into you on the street? How would you maybe try to change their mind a little bit on that?
I mean, the biggest thing that I always touch on is the demographic. Age group is all the way from well, Little Woolies is going on right now because kids are out of school.
Mm,
But in classes that you could see or anybody can see, we have from the age of 14 all the way up to 70 is the oldest athlete. So that's the big thing where people go, wait, what? And then from that, you just continue to talk about how there is the scaling opportunities. It's not one specific thing. Yeah, we have a large stroke that we're trying to achieve, which is going to look at the stimulus, the intensity, the weight that you're going to be moving, the movements that we're going to be doing. But it might look different from me to you, as well as from you to Judy or Jeff or you know Steph or anybody from all walks of life, right? So everybody's always doing something that's on a broad stroke what we have for the board, or on the board, I should say, which is going to cater to all of our members, into the personalization of it where you can track your progress and see how you're moving, or when we get into the more intense and technical stuff, how we can scale it back accordingly based on injuries, previous injuries, current injuries, or not even anything, just capabilities at the time where they're just kind of starting out. So that's kind of the broad kind of, hey, let's reel you in. Don't think that you're going to get hurt because you won't. 90% of the time, when people say that they're injured, they're getting hurt from outside the facility, right?
yeah, that's
So
very true.
that's the big thing and misconception is you're not going to get injured. There's always going to be eyes on you, and a trained eye is going to be more beneficial than you going to, say, a 24-hour access gym and just I'm going to do this.
Hmm.
You might not be doing it correctly, which is going to cause some sort of injury that you might not know about until you step off the curb.
Hmm.
And then you're trying to figure it out from there.
Yeah.
But that's when you seek out individuals like us that are going to have the opportunity to give you the concepts and the technical movements um, to progress in the correct direction.
Yeah, and I like the idea of the community that you've outlined, or not an idea, it's a reality, really, from little woolies all the way up to some members being 60s, 70s, that sort of thing. It's truly a kind of a microcosm of society, which I think is cool because a lot of people, unfortunately, might be in a gym setting or might have only limited experience in certain settings where it's judgmental. Maybe they are surrounded by a lot of other people that are only their age or a similar demographic, and they might feel like, oh, I'm not doing as well as people that are of a similar age, and maybe I should be doing better
Mm-hmm.
is the key. And they fall off of their fitness journey because of that that judgmental attitude or perspective. So how do you, as the coach and as the gym owner, really make sure that everybody feels welcome, everybody feels like they have a place, and regardless of your current abilities, they can be successful in your gym.
Yeah, I mean the way that I kind of break it down is every class time is their own little team.
Mm-hmm.
right? You have your 5 a.m.ers, 6 a.m.ers, so the early morning go-getters. You have the 9 a.m. individuals that are, either students that don't want to wake up early or older folks that can make that time work best for their schedule. Then you have the lunch people that just love to talk. And then you have the afternoon individuals that are just, hey, I just worked 8 hours. Now I'm trying to decompress and get after it. And then, you know, it allows us as coaches to identify that and change how we need to teach the workout that is at hand for the day. Um, and then it looks different on paper, maybe per person, like we were talking about before, but ultimately it's all just about who's going to be showing up, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I totally lost track of what I was trying to say.
That's right. I'd say you answered it. So, I mean, what I think is important to really emphasize is how scalable, how adaptable CrossFit is. I
Yes.
think a lot of people don't understand that. And speaking as somebody who honestly at one point was a CrossFit hater when I was a purely Olympic weightlifter,
Mm-hmm.
thinking like, oh, look at their technique or whatever. For me, that has been the most fun part of CrossFit is how variable it is and how there's always some new challenge. And certain parts are, when you first start out, you're going to be, pretty good in some areas, a lot weaker in others. Like gymnastics probably will always be the hardest part for me
Always.
on the bar, that is, especially. The Olympic, weights that, those movements come pretty easily just from having trained in that specifically. But point is, there's so much variability, and that's what keeps people engaged or keeps it engaging, I would say. So maybe to those who are skeptical of CrossFit or have heard of it or thought about it, I mean, what to you is maybe the biggest selling point of the workouts specifically that would differ from a lot of workouts that they would get at other gyms?
Yeah. So I mean, the classic example is, are you planning on standing on a stage ever? Right? Meaning, are you trying to be a real bodybuilder?
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Most of the time, it's an answer of no. Okay, so why are you training to be bigger, bulkier, whatever? You want to look good. You can look good in different ways. And the most opportune way is going to be how to be functional. So daily activity is what we are training for, the unknown and the unknowable. But again, going back to that willingness to try, there's a million different things that you might not know how to do. But every time that you come in and you conquer a new skill, it's satisfying. And that satisfaction factor is a key component that all CrossFit gyms give. The cool thing about Mammoth is it's just kind of how we plan it, right? We plan our weeks, our days, our weeks, our blocks for programming based on that, and we get to utilize our goals that individuals have set. That helps me program a little bit more. So that's kind of the fun part behind both CrossFit overall as a broad stroke, as well as what Mammoth gives an opportunity for.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
So
and I think that part of you mentioned the programming and adjusting it depending on how people are doing or how things are going, I think is really important. Like just to have your expertise in general, supervising everybody and making sure that there's a system in place is huge because a lot of people, to the example that you gave, they might just be doing several exercises throughout the week and that's really their only standard to know like am I getting better, right?
yeah.
I went from 15 pounds to 17 and a half pounds on the lateral raises, right?
Hmm.
And if that progress doesn't happen week to week or month to month, they feel like, well, I'm not getting any better. So, um, as somebody who clinically likes to keep track of things and kind of measure, test patients throughout an episode of care, that part is super helpful. But just give an outline to
Yeah.
the people listening or watching. How do you personally, or how does CrossFit in general, how do you track fitness and how do you make sure people are making progress?
Yeah, so the methodology itself, it's not random, and that's what a lot of people think, right? We're taking anywhere between we'll say one to three activities throughout the day, and we're rolling through variables of intensity, speeds, and stimuluses, right? So we're thinking weight, time domain, and how hard you should be going. And then from the perspective of what I do as the individual programming for our facility, is I look at it from a little bit more of a well-known concept, the conjugate method.
Mm,
So we're taking dynamic efforts and max efforts, and we're kind of fluctuating through a continuum where you don't get bored. So the way that our weeks look, it's front half of the week, we're thinking more max effort. So just building. It's not something that we should be afraid of, right? Even though it says max effort or you're maxing out, I'm not looking for you to, work till you fail,
Mm-hmm.
right? I'm just working you to build. And then on the back half, I'm trying to think about more speed and more efficiency in your movement pattern. So you're going to pick a movement. We're going to have, a variable that we're going to kind of sit at on a scale of 1 to 10 rather than 1 to 100 for a percentage. And, you might feel great. So it might be a little bit heavier than the number that we gave for the day. Or if you don't feel great and you didn't get enough sleep or any other factors that might kind of predict differently for what we have um, inside the gym, right? You tailor it back a little bit, but you're still getting something that you can successfully do, moving correctly, moving efficiently, moving with speed and power, and that's the big thing that we look for.
Mm-hmm.
So tracking that progress with our logbook is actually very important, and a lot of people hate it, which is crazy, right? You come to a facility and you can interact with individuals that you didn't see.
Mm-hmm.
You can be competitive with individuals that you don't see, and you can try to beat their numbers, whether it be by a pound or two or by a second and a half.
Always a pound.
Exactly, and you can talk some smack, but at the same time, you give them a high five and say, "Hey, I'll see you tomorrow, and we'll get back to it."
Yeah.
Um, so the competitive side of things helps. The tracking side of things is important because you can see your progress,
Mm-hmm.
right? No different than you have your plan of how fast or how well am I going to get in the next couple of weeks so that I can get back to doing what I love and what I want to do.
Mm-hmm.
It is important,
Yeah.
and everybody should log their stuff.
Yeah. Track your stuff, people. But no, I like the connection that you draw between all of those concepts. And for me, I've said this on our RMC episodes previously that one of the biggest reasons for me being engaged in fitness in general, but especially at the Woolly Mammoth, and one of the biggest things I've noticed has improved as a dad is my ability just to be present.
Hmm.
Play with the kids, just get through life more easily compared to before I started to focus on all aspects of fitness, and it was just how heavy of a weight can I do on these two very specific movements with Olympic weightlifting. Now fitness in general means so much more. I'm doing what I'm doing not just for myself but for family and those that depend on me. So where do you feel like CrossFit fits in the spectrum of fitness for everybody? Because
Yeah.
obviously not everybody has done it. Maybe some people are on the fence about trying it ever, but do you feel like it's appropriate for everybody, or is there a specific trait that somebody should kind of analyze in themselves if they have that and that they'd be a good fit for
Yeah.
CrossFit?
So there's two things that I want to say. One, the beauty of it is that you don't need a whole lot of time, right? Obviously when you go to a class it's an hour long and we're doing a bunch of stuff, you have eyes on you, you're allowing for people to get some opportunities to learn. But if you don't have an hour and you have 15 minutes and you can give yourself a vigorous, well done, thought out concept, you don't need to go to the gym for 2 hours. You don't need to hit just one body part where you're blowing it up to just get a massive pump.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's reason for it, and if you want that, you can do it. But CrossFit is great because it allows us to kind of shorten the concept so you get an overall functional activity done in a shorter amount of time. But from the standpoint of a class factor, if you want to learn more, that's when you go to those. And that's the important part is because you have all eyes on you teaching you and you get more bang for your buck, right? From the standpoint of how old, we'll use the age factor. My grandpa's 84 years old. He comes to the gym twice a week. I work out with him for 30 minutes. I do not do a warm up. Let me rephrase. I don't do your classic, hey, we're going to get your heart rate elevated. Then we're going to go into a specific behind, our goal for today is going to be able to squat. So a lower body day or an upper body day. I have him come in. We do uh, mobility as well as heart rate um, increasing, or I'm trying to get his heart rate to, increase. So that's our warm up. It's more concept for just movement overall. And then the way that I look at it is push and a pull, but with more grip strength,
Mm-hmm.
right? So in the short time that he's been doing this 2 times a week for the last 3, 4 months, he's been feeling much better. He's actually the individual that is pushing people around, being able to walk or golf 9 to 18 holes at 80, 84 years old. and it's because of his fitness. His fitness level is getting better to allow him to do daily activity, and it's not that, hey, I'm there for an hour. No, it's just having a thought out program that's going to allow you to just kind of move
Mm-hmm.
the right way. Grip strength, pushing, pulling, sitting, standing, all activities of life that we need for the longevity of our individual,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because without it, you're going to have somebody help you off the couch, off the toilet, you know, doing your due diligence to rotate side to side to be able to clean yourself. You don't
Right.
want somebody to do that. I
Yeah.
mean, maybe you do, but most people want their independence.
Probably would want to opt for not doing that. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's another reason why our partnership and our relationship works so well, is that that's a lot of that idea of longevity and long-term fitness is, something that I try to incorporate in my practice as well. A lot of rehab is more in the short term. You and I are both more focused on the long term, which I think is awesome. And you described a lot of concepts that you're very intentional about as a coach, like use of the RPE scale, maybe adjusting to how you feel day to day, because not every day is of course going to be the same output, because life is not always the same throughout the week. So as we wrap up here, maybe provide like some general summative thoughts, or words of encouragement maybe for those who again have never met you, never
Mm-hmm.
heard of Woolly Mammoth or CrossFit in general. You and I are going to have some follow-up episodes, ideally, of course. We'll get into more of the specific the weeds on various topics, but just as a general message for CrossFit overall and fitness, maybe what might be some positive words of encouragement you have for everybody.
Try it. That's the biggest thing. Go and try it. Whether you're going to your local affiliate or if you just want to try to do some sort of workout, right? Easy workout. Put a timer on, 5 minutes, and drop to the ground, jump up and celebrate. 5 minutes of burpees. That right there, if you do that, you're going to see tremendous amounts of cardiovascular training
Mm-hmm.
as well as a little bit of strength training because you're pushing yourself off the floor, and then a little bit of a plyometric with a little jump, right? So that's the big thing. Just try. And then on top of that, if you want more information, you can always reach out, right? If you're local, give us a shout. Find us on CrossFitWoollyMammoth.com. I don't know if we still are linked together on our pages. I think I am.
We should be.
Yeah.
You're on mine for sure. So.
Yeah, and I have yours as well.
Mm-hmm.
So either or, you find me through him or find each other through
Mm-hmm.
one of our websites. And then social media platforms where you can find us. But on top of that, like I was saying earlier, if you are in the area and you're interested in trying, meet at Mequon Hill at 9 o'clock, August 8th. So 8/8, 9 o'clock. Hill climb, try the workout. We'll have scaling opportunities, and then you can meet some of the people.
There you go. Short, sweet, to the point. Coach Klopp, Mitch, appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Appreciate your
Thanks for
time.
having me.
And for those of you listening or watching, again, it doesn't have to be overly complicated, but it does have to be something. And for many of you, if you've not tried it, CrossFit is probably the thing that you are looking for in your fitness journey and maybe didn't even realize. So give it a shot. Mitch, thank you.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.